Hey, welcome back to another edition of Everything Football 62. Yeah, y'all, man. 2020, as we all know, has been that year. Just it's been a crazy year, to say the least. But one of the things that kind of just bugged me out a little bit, really bugged me out some, was the fact that we had uh, Green Bay Packer Herb Adderley passed away the other day. I think it was Thursday or Friday, I believe. And he was one of the best corners in the game. And with Herb Adderley, and this is the thing. Well, I'm bringing this up for. I'm bringing this up because it's been three legendary Green Bay Packer football players that has passed away, and the reason why it's it kind of it kind of like bugs me out some was because like you had Herb Adderley, you had Willie Davis, and you had Willie Wood, and all of those guys, because of those great Packers teams of the '60s, those 6 NFL championships and all that other kind of stuff, and you're talking about guys who were like who probably between the three of them, you're looking at somebody that's for that makes nine. About 14 times that all three of them players was like 14 times like all three of those players were all pro first team in their careers, right? Almost about the same amount of Pro Bowls, if not a few more. All of them is like they are like how many championships between them that they was a part of, between five. What we got here? Five, and I think Adley at six, I believe. Yeah, so it's like so you're talking about 16 championships. Herb Adderley has six NFL championships. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and see, and we would end up playing for the Cowboys and whatnot. And the reason why it's major to me because, again, like I tell you guys, I'm historical. The historical aspect of the game, and watching the NFL films as a kid when I could catch it. Cable didn't exist in my time. At least like where my family was at, didn't exist, so you could catch that stuff every now and then. And so the Packers was the thing. That was the dynasty. So when I'm coming up, Pittsburgh is doing their thing in the 70s, right? It's about Pittsburgh. But the Packers of the 60s, right? It was the Packers of the 60s, and of course you had the Boston Celtics of the 60s and all those championships. So that was a glorious time, and that was a glorious time for NFL films, right? And whatnot, incorporating the slow motion and stuff like that. But I think one of the main things that always hit me with the Packers was the fact that their players, those three guys who've all passed away in 2020. And that's something, and that's wild. So it's crazy because 19, there about two or three Packers passed away then, and whatnot. Bart Starr, I think Forrest Gregg. I want to say Jim Taylor, but Jim Taylor might was around 2017, maybe. I'm not sure. But because these guys were one of the best one of the top 5, top 10 at their positions, all three of them are Hall of Famers, and all three of them are African American. And and that's where I remember those guys, because the thing about Bart Starr, Jim Taylor, Paul Hornung, you heard of it. Those are those guys, and Fuzzy Thurston and Jerry Kramer and Jerry Kramer and Forrest Gregg and all of those guys on the offensive side of the ball, right? Elijah Pitts played on that side as well as an African American, later on and whatnot. But I remember distinctively gravitating obviously to Herb Adderley, Willie Wood, and as well as Willie Davis, especially with Willie Davis. And of course, like I said, coming up, and that's what molded me. That was the first vision I saw of football, was the Packers and whatnot. The Packers, and then of course with Dallas and everything, but just in football in general, it just gave you that vivid look into the game and that I grew accustomed to love and fell in love with. But the Packers are a part of my growth because they were the flagship team. They were that's who you looked at. That like that those are the guys. They were the dynasty. That's when the term dynasty started being slung around there in the football terms. Those were the guys, right? Those 6 championships in like 9 or 10 years or whatever, or 8 or 9 years or however that stuff went. But they Lombardi had them guys playing. But for these 3 guys to pass away all in 2020, man, that's kind of deep. It's kind of sad, but I guess to an extent you could say it's fitting. It's fitting because those were the 3 stalwarts. Dave Robinson is still living because he's a part of those champions. He's a part of about 4 or 5 of those championships, if I'm not mistaken. And he just recently got into the Hall of Fame. But all of those guys played together at one time or another. That was vital for them. Willie Davis, Willie Wood, Herb Adderley, Dave Robinson, and those guys was really the some serious guys on that team. So it was kind of sad to see that those guys had passed away. And I saw an article about a year or so ago, whatever year, and it was written a couple of years ago. Like it was a major Packer fan, just talking about all of the guys from his childhood, because that's not from my childhood. I could watch those films of those. That's why I knew about those guys. I loved NFL films and whatnot. That was before my time. That was decades before. That was a decade or so before my time when I really started in corporate football. Like I said, I take everything from that time. In my time when I was really starting to watch football, the Steelers was doing what the Steelers was doing. Steelers, Cowboys, Raiders, and whatnot. I'm 8, 9, 10 years old and stuff like that. So on up until now. But those guys, I was like, wow, those guys were something. Those guys were giants. So, you know what I'm saying? So definitely rest in peace to all those gentlemen. They shaped me insofar as just loving the game and their contribution to me, especially somebody like Herb Adderley. Herb Adderley was one of the top corners, period. I really don't know why he wasn't really in. But I think Deacon Jones said it once. He said those were maybe not some of those teams wasn't the most gifted teams, but it was well coached and all this kind of stuff. But Herb Adderley definitely, he was one of those corners that did everything. And see that 60-yarder joint against against the Raiders, so he took it to the house and kind of blew the game open and whatnot. So and plus I say he played and he got the Cowboys over the top. With 2, he played that 3 years, went to 2 Super Bowls and won one. That was the 6-1. So that was that was something there. So Herb Adderley, that's always gonna be something there. But yeah, man, it's a sad day. Kind of a sad day. So all the Packers fans and whatnot, hey man, from a football person to another one and stuff like that, really, you hate to see that and whatnot. But yeah, those guys, all 3 of those guys passed this year. Just 2020 has just been that type of year, unfortunately. So that's part of it. You know what I'm saying? So that was a part of my growth, and a lot of it has to do with the Green Bay Packers. Ironically enough, them in the Ice Bowl with Dallas and those 2 NFL championship games and stuff like that. It's major stuff. So it's like so this is one of those things. But those guys were instrumental in me getting into the history aspect of it. But just 3 African Americans who were dominant players on a team that was so good. That was kind of that was like, wow. I said, okay, I get it. Because at the time, I'm seeing it with Pittsburgh. It's like, okay, it's the 70s, but this was early 60s. So that was a major statement. So, big up to all those 3 players, the great Willie Wood, Willie Davis, and Herb Adderley. Rest in peace, and big up to Packers fans and and Packer Nation and all that stuff like that. I'll be back a little bit later.